Greetings, Corpse Clubbers, and welcome to another edition of Corpse Club Horror BFFs. I'm one of your Horror BFFs, Patrick Bromley, joined as always by my Horror BFF, Heather Wixson. Hi, Heather.
What is up? I know it feels like it's been like forever, but it kind of has been. So, because I think it's been like 5 weeks since we did this, 6 weeks almost.
Oh my gosh, it was at least 4 Underworld movies ago. Because
I know
I forgot that we were doing this episode for Class of '89, and so I was trying to cram in all the Underworld movies. I've watched 4 of the 5 because I was like, I made a promise I would watch these movies. I've gotten to 4 of the 5. I have another month to get through the 5th one. So
you do. Take your time. You want to savor the flavor.
Yeah,
of
you
the
definitely don't want to
movies.
rush. The last one is what, Blood War?
Yes, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
I know it's funny because like we always joke because like we talk about like Resident Evil or Underworld or whatever, and Brad would be like, "Which one is that one again?" I'm like, "I don't know, part 3."
Right. You
like,
can't keep them straight.
It's the stupid titles. I like numeric titles, so I like franchises that puts the number in there. I don't, I want the number because I'm an old lady now, so it's hard for me to keep track. But if you say something to me where they're like, oh, when this happened, I know what sequel it's from, and I know where it falls in the spectrum. But just numerize your sequels, people. Just do it.
Yeah,
like,
come on.
In 20 years, I'm not going to know how to talk about the Halloween movies or this new batch of Halloween movies because I'm going to be like, I don't know, do we call Halloween Kills Halloween 2? Like, is it Halloween 2 squared? I don't know. Just give me numbers.
You can't call it Halloween 2 because it would be the 3rd Halloween 2.
I know, which is bananas.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny. So yeah, it's like Halloween 2 squared, 2 cubed.
Well, like when it comes to the Friday the 13th movies, is part 4 technically Friday the 13th part 4 : the final chapter, or is it just Friday the 13th the final chapter? Same with part 5. I've seen them written both ways.
I think historically it is part 4 : the final chapter.
Okay. I feel like I've seen it just Friday the 13th the final chapter.
You could be right, but I know for a fact 5 is part 5 /
okay.
The new what is it again?
A New Beginning.
New Beginning.
Yeah.
Sorry, I almost said The New Blood, and I was like, no, that's not right. That's the psychic chick.
Right.
So I'm old. I can't keep track of my franchises anymore. If you're not, Scream was like Scream 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom, we're done. We're
pretty
good.
easy. Yeah, pretty easy to keep those straight. They didn't mess around with little cutesy subtitles or anything either.
No, they just put numbers into 4 into the word Scream and 4, and we were done.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. By the way, so Joe Lynch and I are going to work on Speed 3 together. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that, but you know what a big Joe Lynch fan I am, so this is very exciting.
Yes, because I actually came up with the greatest idea on how to do Speed 3. I'm not going to say it because I'm never going to do anything with this, and this is actually never going to happen. But he came up with Speed 3 with the 3 and the speed. And I said, well, if you let me use that, you can direct. And we made a deal. So I think it's binding because we said it on Twitter.
Yeah, that is definitely legally binding. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, look for Speed 3 in the next few years from Joe Lynch, written by me. So
Keanu, that is a movie I would see opening day. Keanu is revisiting a lot of his old franchises, so the door is open.
Do it.
Yeah.
Right? Johnny Mnemonic 2, here we come.
We got news of a new Matrix movie, and of course, Bill and Ted Face the Music, the sequel to the movie we're talking about today.
I know. And it's a funny thing is like I don't love the Matrix sequels as obviously as much as I love the original, but I've come to appreciate them more now. I think, hindsight, as they say, is always, 20/20. And I think having a little distance from them and being able to sort of distance them from the profound expectations going into those movies. I like them better now than I did then. I still don't love them, but I like them a lot more now. But I am excited to see what 4 is going to be about. Like, I'm really intrigued by that. So, and I love that Carrie-Anne Moss is going to be back too. So
yeah, me too. She doesn't work enough.
No, she really does not.
Any new Wachowski movie is cause for celebration, even when it's Jupiter ascending.
I wish I liked that more. I mean, I
Me
think
too.
I kind of
I didn't like it.
I know. I kind of appreciate sort of its junk food approach in a way where it was almost like hoity-toity sci-fi with a junk food like attitude to it, kind of. I don't even know if that makes sense. But you think like it's Channing Tatum and Mila Kunis, like it's made for me, like, you know. But yeah, that was a rough one.
Yeah.
But you know, maybe if it had Keanu, maybe we wouldn't have had that discussion. We'd be on our 4th Jupiter Ascending movie right now. Who knows?
Any movie with Keanu is better than a movie without Keanu.
That's what I've been saying for like 30 years now.
And that's why we're getting Chain Reaction to Chainer Reaction.
Chainer Reactioner. I mean, Morgan Freeman's still here. We could do this. We could do this right now. we could just run the gamut of all the Keanu movies.
I'm in.
I will go watch Walk in the Clouds too. You know, more walking, less clouds. I don't know. Like, I don't know how you would make that sequel, but like, I'd watch it. I mean, I watched that movie 4 times in a theater because I'm an idiot, but you know.
Walk in the Clouds is one of the few Keanu movies I've never seen.
Really, it's not great. I will be perfectly honest. I can recognize when my Lord and Savior Keanu doesn't do great movies. But I think there's a sweetness to it, and I think there's a purity to it, and I think that for me kind of saves it a little bit. But it's like a movie out of time. Like that movie should exist in like the 50s.
Right.
And I think when you release a movie like that in the 90s, I don't think it was necessarily what people were looking for. But it's sweet. Like, it just, I don't know, seeing him save the vineyards and help them regrow. I don't want to ruin anything.
Please
for you
don't spoil A Walk in the Clouds.
Sorry, I don't mean to spoil this 25 years later. I apologize. But yeah, I did see it 4 times in the theater because I might have been slightly obsessed while I was in high school.
I don't blame you at all.
I borrowed somebody's car to go. Like, I borrowed a car to go see it for the 4th time. That's how much I needed to go see that movie.
That's pretty intense.
So, like, there's movies like, oh, I don't have a car. Okay, I don't have to go see it. And I was like, I need to borrow your car. I
to
have
see
to
it
go
for the
see
4th time, not even like to see it for the first time.
No, the 4th time.
Already seen it 3 times. Got to see it for number 4.
Right? Yeah, I was a little obsessed in high school. But you know, here I am now. All the better for it.
Well, and Keanu, of course, is the star of the movie that we're talking about on this episode of Corpse Club, which is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. And Heather, why are we talking about Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?
Because, well, it is excellent and it's an adventure. Also because we are in the middle of Class of '89. This is, I think, I think I said 5th year on Twitter, but I think this is our 6th year.
Oh, wow.
Of doing class of stuff, because we did 84, we did 85, we did 86, 87, and 88. So I think this is our 6th year, which is kind of crazy to me because it'll be 6 years since or it's our 6th season of this, I guess.
Right.
5th year, 6th season, something like that. And, you know, I think for me, it's fun to kind of look back on these movies that are turning 30. Because, you know, I think there's a lot of really fun stuff going on. And honestly, like, you know, now we're at the end of the 80s. So it's a little sad because I'm like, do we go to 90 next year or do we cycle back to 80? I don't know. I'm sort of torn on that because there's some really good shit in the 90s or in 1990. Okay. Like, I'm just itching to go Exorcist 3. I was like, oh, I think Exorcist 3 is 89. I was like, oh, it's 90. You know, so I think it's really fun. And I was like, honestly, like, I've just been basically building till the point where we could talk about Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and have a real reason to do so. So this has been my selfish goal for the last 5 or so years.
It's all been I just wanted to building get to towards this moment
right here.
Yeah.
Right now. Yeah.
Worth it.
So exactly. All the blood, sweat, and tears. But yeah, we're doing a lot of really fun stuff, celebrating a lot of great genre movies from the year 1989. We kicked off Monday this week with Scott Drebit, and we've got stuff running pretty much for the next 2 weeks, or this week and next week. And we'll be rerunning a bunch of stuff over the weekends for things that maybe people have missed over time. Because there's, like, I did my Heather series earlier this year, which definitely fits into this, and I know you years ago did a really great Dream Child piece that we're going to be rerunning.
People need to see that piece.
Yes, I mean, come on. It is Dream Child. So there's a lot of good stuff that we've already sort of covered over the years. But I'm excited that like this is sort of our capper to the decade of the 80s. And I like, and everyone's like, oh, you're a horror site. Why would you cover Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure? And I'm sorry, but time travel falls into the realm of sci-fi, and therefore it should be covered. So here we are. And some of the greatest movies ever have been time travel movies. So I'm just saying.
Hot Tub Time Machine, Hot Tub Time Machine 2.
Yes. Back to the Future.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I know you're so fixated on Hot Tub Time Machine. I never saw part 2. Is it terrible?
I don't remember liking it very much. I remember going to see it opening day because I had to review it, and I was the only one in the theater, which never bodes well for a brand new movie.
That tells you everything you need right there.
But I remember liking the first one.
I loved the first one. They didn't bring John Cusack back, right?
They did not. He was replaced by Adam Scott,
who's
great.
And I like Adam Scott.
Yeah, me too, but not the same.
No Lloyd Dobler.
No.
Gotcha.
Better time travel comedy, Hot Tub Time Machine or Bill and Ted?
Oh, Bill and Ted.
Yeah.
But I think there's different intentions to them. I don't know. It's weird because, like, for me, like, Bill and Ted, I think, is, like, a lot like Back to the Future. Like, I really sort of captured this sense of anything could happen. And I think also for me, because I think for me, the key to this is also the purity of the characters. Do you know what I mean? Like, Hot Tub Time Machine, like, you like those characters, but, like, Bill and Ted, like, these are guys that, like, you root for because you relate to them. I think a lot of ways, like, you relate to Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future. Mm-hmm. Like, they're likable guys that you understand them and you kind of see a part of yourself in them. And I think that's one of the reasons that, like, 30 years later, we're getting a Bill and Ted sequel or a second sequel, because, like, these characters endure. You know what I mean? Like, they're still characters that we like. There's still characters that we can relate to even now. And I'm curious to see in 30 years from the release date of Hot Tub Time Machine, which was what, like 2009, 2010?
Sure. That sounds right. 2009, maybe.
I'll be dead by then, but, like, I'll be curious to look down from heaven or look up from hell and be like, are they talking about a Hot Tub Time Machine out there? Oh, they are. Look at that. I won't really know. Somebody will have to let me know in the afterlife.
This is a different question. We, should at some point get into a discussion of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. But let me ask you this. Do you think it's possible for a contemporary movie to endure? The way that something like, Bill and Ted endures because it kind of became a cult movie. People watched it on cable. People rented it. People don't do those things anymore. And I just feel like entertainment has become so much more single use and disposable. If it isn't, and that's why we franchise everything to death, because the single thing isn't going to live on. So we just keep making new installments. So you don't have to go back and watch the Avengers again and again and again, because you're just going to get the new episode of the Avengers every 2 years or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
just don't know if a movie like Hot Tub Time Machine, obviously not the best example, but I can't think of many contemporary movies that are really going to still be talked about in 10 to 20 years, because we just don't have the same attention span, I don't think.
Yeah, it's tricky because, like, Marvel, I don't think is a good example, just because, like, my niece does sort of binge watch those movies over and over again. So maybe it's different for, like, kids who have parents who appreciate physical media. Like, I think if you're a kid who, basically grows up with parents who just send you to the movies to get you out of their hair, it's a much different thing than, like, parents who are trying to foster a love of movies. Like, I think your kids will grow up to appreciate movies for years and years to come because of the way that they're raised and the environment they're raised in. But then there's other kids who parents are just like, here's $20, go see something. You know what I mean? Like they're just trying to entertain them or do whatever. It's weird. Like I try to think about movies that, like, I think something like Attack the Block, for example, which came out years ago, and didn't do gangbusters in the theater, but it's an amazing movie. And I think that's a movie that, like, it's already starting to kind of get that minor cult footing to it, where I see it mentioned more and more. And I think it's a movie, like, in 20 years, there's going to be a lot of kids who are going to discover that movie and be like, oh, wow, like, why didn't more people go see this? Like, I think in the way that, like, you know, there's a lot of, like, horror movies that we see that happen with, like, you know, something like The Thing, which, you know, basically only came to be what it is now because of VHS and stuff like that. So it's weird. Like, I don't know in 10 years if people are even going to want physical media. I do, because I don't trust the internet. And it's all going to come crashing down on us eventually at some point. And basically that's my happy worldview. But I think it all comes from sort of the environment that you're brought up in. Like for me, like, yeah, we went to movies to just go to movies, but at the same time, we went to movies because we were looking for stories. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I think it's all going to depend on why kids now are watching movies. Are they watching movies because they're looking for great stories, or are they watching movies simply because they need a distraction and they want to go hang out with their friends and text on their phone the whole time? So my hopes for future generations aren't completely lost, that they're not going to start discovering some great movies that have come out in the last 10 years. But I don't know. If I only had a time machine, I could go to the future and see.
Beautiful segue. Beautiful.
So if only I had a phone booth.
This is the movie that I saw on a Saturday afternoon in 1989. I walked to my local second-run theater because even though I was 12 years old, I was allowed to go with friends as long as the movie was, you know, PG or PG-13.
Elk Grove Cinema?
Elk Grove Cinema.
That's where I saw it.
Yeah, I saw it on a Saturday afternoon. And this was the movie that made me a Keanu Reeves fan. I know he had done a couple movies prior to this, but it wasn't anything I had seen. And this was the movie where I was like, wait a second, who is that unbelievable magnetic personality with amazing comic timing and incredible handsomeness? And so then I went back and saw River's Edge and, you know, recorded Permanent Record off of HBO and probably like tracked down a copy of Youngblood. And he was on my radar from then out and has always been one of my favorite actors. And you and I have talked about that it was like uncool to love Keanu Reeves for so many years. And now it's the coolest thing to love Keanu Reeves. But this was the movie that first turned me on to him.
Yeah, I had actually seen River's Edge as a kid because I was visiting family in West Virginia, and my cousin would always rent these weird, like, teen movies. Like, I think she rented My Tutor, which I saw that way too young. And then one of the nights I was there, she actually rented River's Edge. And I was like, you know, of course I was going to watch it because I watched everything. And boy, that movie was like, holy shit. Like, that was a lot of movie for being 9 years old. Right. Like, yes. I was like, yeah. So there's a lot. It was like, okay, this is probably not something I really should be watching. But I saw this guy and I was like, who is this guy? And then I put it together that he was the guy in the very same year that he's doing River's Edge, he's doing Babes in Toyland. Which is another Keanu movie I still have not seen. It's cute. It's got Jill Schoelen and Drew Barrymore. Like, it's cute. It's not great, but it's cute. It's a fun little Christmas movie. You had me at Jill Schoelen. I figured I would. That's why I led with Jill Schoelen. Are you kidding me? Yeah. And I was just like, wow, this guy, like, who is this guy? You know, and then Parenthood wasn't before Bill and Ted, right? Parenthood was after. Parenthood, I think, was the next year. Okay. But it was just really, there was just something about this guy that, like, there was more going on than you thought. And that's not taking anything away from Alex Winter, because I actually really like Alex Winter a lot. He's great. Yeah, he's great. And
him I knew. He was Marco, so I already recognized Alex Winter.
Yeah, I was like, where'd all his hair go, man? But like, he's somebody I've come to appreciate in a different way, because I love the fact that like Freaked is now become this thing again, which was this weird, crazy movie that the only reason I rented it was because the guy from Bill and Ted made it, and I was like, oh, okay.
And because Keanu plays Jojo the dog boy. Exactly,
right. So there was just something. This movie was like this perfect storm, because I was 11, and I remember, again, going to Elk Grove Cinema. I also saw Bogus Journey at Elk Grove as well. And actually, the first time I went to Bogus Journey, I got pulled out because I was not supposed to be going to movies with boys, and my mom followed me in the theater.
Oh,
so I had to go back. I got
you
busted.
harlot.
I know, like, right? There was like 15 of us, and there was like 4 boys in the mix, and my mom was like, nope. And I was like, are you kidding me? But to me, like, Bill and Ted, like, not only did it like capture these 2 guys that you really liked, that they didn't know that their life was figured out. And I think that's something important about the original story, is like, I think it taught a lot of us, you know, as we were growing up and becoming older and trying to figure out who the hell we were. I mean, maybe it was different for kids in high school, but like, I didn't know who I was, you know, in junior high. Like, there's no way to know who you are, and you're trying to figure that shit out. And I think the fact that this is a movie that ultimately is about destiny. And it's about the fact that 2 normal guys could be bound for greatness. And it was like, oh, really? These guys could do really cool, amazing things? Like, maybe I could. And here I am. But do you remember in junior high, do you remember when they gave us the Bill and Ted book covers? Did you get those in your class?
I don't think so.
I still have one of them to this day. Jenna has one also. They gave us Bill and Ted book covers for our books, because remember back then you had to put the paper on your books and all that bullshit that never worked, and it ripped like 2 weeks later. I still have one of my Bill and Ted book covers because I didn't want to use all of them. And it was awesome. It was like this big like star thing, and you had them when they were in the corner on the phone booth, and the world was like in the other corner and stuff. And I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. I got them in like my English class. And I was curious if you had gotten them too, but Jenna has one also.
I took all the wrong classes, obviously.
So I always wondered about that. But yeah, we actually found it a couple of years ago in like all my papers and stuff. My mom had saved it for some reason. So I still have my Bill and Ted book cover. And I will never use it.
There's something very bittersweet about watching the movie this week. I hadn't seen it in a number of years, and I think it holds up really, really well, with the exception of like the
one word.
Yeah, the one word when they hug each other, and you're like, oh, if only, you know, if not for that. But it's bittersweet because, I don't know, it just presents a world, you know, where that has become a utopia, because these 2 really sweet guys like are running things. Like we have made the world in their image. And there's a cynical way to look at it, to say like, well, it's the dumbing down of society, right? Because we're following these 2 knuckleheads. But like the movie is not presenting that as the reality. The movie is clearly saying like, no, these guys are sweet and they love the things that they love and they're good people. And wouldn't the world be a better place if we were all a little bit more like Bill and Ted? And as we live through what we're living through right now, there was something sad about watching, you know, this potential utopia that values things like kindness and decency, as opposed to what we're living in now. Not to get all political.
No, and I think there's something to be said for that, because I think, you know, I look at things that are going on today, and it's like, okay, say in a perfect world, in a few years, all of this kind of starts to work itself out one way or the other, whatever. I just don't know at what point do we ever come back together again as the human race. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the divisions that we're facing, and again, I don't want to be super political about this, and this isn't even just political. I think there's so much division in this world now, whether it's the way people go at each other on social media over things that aren't political, the way we do think, you know, the political stuff as well. But it's like, we're so divided as a world now that I don't know what it would take to bring us all together. I would love if it was the music of Wyld Stallyns. Like, I want to believe in a world like that. I think there's still a part of me that, you know, for as much as I am a realist, there is still part of me that was like, that would be like, you know, it would be amazing if we all could just come together like this and sort of coexist because of this love of this one thing. Like, to me, like, that would be amazing. I wish we could have that. I don't think we'll ever have that again. But I hope I'm wrong. And I think that there is something really great about that, especially sort of as a capper to the decade of the 80s, because there was some, you know, between, you know, all of the stuff throughout Reagan's, you know, career, you know, in the White House and the things that were going on, you know, in terms of, you know, other socio-political issues like AIDS and, you know, and seeing sort of the dissolution of like the American family and things like that. Like, here's a movie at the end of all of that that's saying, you know what, no, we can be better as human beings. Like, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, there is something that ties us all together. And in this instance, it's Wyld Stallyns.
Yes.
And there is something that's nice about that. Like, I want to live in that. Like, I may be an idealist way to look at stuff, but like, that's okay. I want to be an idealist. Even though there's still a huge part of me that is a realist, and I'm like, well, we're screwed, you know. But I want to still believe in that kind of stuff. I want to be an optimist. I want to believe that things can be better and that things should be better and that we can get there as human beings. I ultimately want to believe in the goodness of humanity, even though there's a lot of things out there these days that doesn't really make you believe that there is goodness in a lot of humanity.
Right.
Not to bring it down or anything.
Yeah, right now I'm too depressed to keep talking about this movie. Do you think that the movie presents Bill and Ted as stoners?
No, I don't. They're just California kids.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I know that, like, they have a certain way about them and a certain manner of speaking that I think we've come to associate with stoners, but and in early drafts of the script they absolutely were. Huh. But I think all of that was
sort of.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry.
No, please.
Oh, I was just gonna say, for me, it's just sort of like this extension of great, like, sort of like, okay, so I live out here now and everything, you know, and you see, there's just a different way you kind of carry yourself when you live out here, which is just like, we joke about this. I'm somebody who says like and totally all the time. Like, I've turned into kind of a valley girl in a way, you know, over the years, because you just kind of absorb into this existence in California. And it's not like we're better or anything, but it's a different pace. And everybody just kind of works a little differently. And so for me, like, Bill and Ted was just like a nicer version of like Jeff Spicoli or Nicolas Cage's character from Valley Girl. I mean, Spicoli was a stoner, obviously, so that's a bad example. But somebody, like, for me, I was hearkened it back to somebody like Nicolas Cage in Valley Girl, who was seen as this type of character by everybody else in around them, but they weren't that person. And I think for me, that's what Bill and Ted are. They're these guys who everybody's just kind of given up on because they're sort of lax about everything. But ultimately, you know, they're the guys who are going to save the world. So for me, it's more like they're just California dudes, than they are, you know, sort of stoners, like, because there's no pot references in it, and they're never smoking weed or anything like that. So I'm sort of glad that they didn't, because I think that would have been a different movie. And it's not to say I don't love stoner movies. I love stoner movies, but like,
I don't love stoner movies, so I'm really glad that this is not a stoner movie.
Oh, well, you're no fun.
Believe me, I know.
I mean, I don't know. I love, like, you know, I love Friday. I love Half Baked. I love Grandma's Boy. You know, I love the Super Troopers movies.
I like some of those movies too. You know, like, regardless of their, I like Grandma's Boy a lot. I like Friday. I just don't get into the drug stuff. I like them sort of in spite of that stuff.
Patrick likes to live in Squaresville, man.
Oh, population me.
Yeah, no, but yeah, I'm really kind of glad this doesn't do that, because I don't think it needed it to sort of be any sort of statement about stoner characters. Because Jesus, after the 80s, like how many, like, did we need that? We didn't. And I think that's probably another reason it sort of endured amongst mainstream audience, as opposed to becoming sort of a fringe movie. Because I think if they would have done that, then it would have kind of gone the way of like a Cheech and Chong movie.
Right. Let me ask you this. Do you feel like this movie, more than any other, hurt Keanu Reeves as an actor?
I don't know if it hurt him, but I think it definitely typecast him, because he's so good in it. But then it's like you sit there and you look, like, I don't understand, like, casting directors who like were looking at Keanu Reeves in 1989 going forward and thinking about, like, you know, oh, could he be in this or could he be in that? And not recognizing some of his earlier work, because he's done some really good stuff before Bill and Ted. But what it did do was it made me really frustrated over the years, because everybody just thought he was that, you know, Ted, Theodore Logan, like that he couldn't give good performances, that was just all that he could do. And I was like, you guys are stupid. Like, how do you not understand that that's a character?
Right.
And that's, you know, like, that's the reason it works so well, because he's in a character, like he's really embodied this character. Like, I just, you know, when you talk about, you know, you mentioned River's Edge, Permanent Record, also Dangerous Liaisons.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
Which I know I shouldn't have been watching as a kid, but my mom watched it a lot, and I was like, well, I'm not going to watch this movie. And then to see the way that he challenged himself in ways that he didn't have to, because, yeah, I know he comes back for Bogus Journey, but he, you know, also does things, you know, like, I don't know, Point Break, but also, you know, does My Own Private Idaho, which I still think is like one of the most heartbreaking movies I've ever seen him do. And I think it's so real and it's so pure, and he's so good in it. You know, and I think he just, you know, I know we kind of then in the 90s, like mid 90s, sort of settled into Keanu Reeves, the action star. But if you really look at the stuff that he was doing, like, I mean, he even did Much Ado About Nothing for Kenneth Branagh, which I used to watch all the time because I used to work at the Store of Knowledge. And we sold that on VHS. And so we would always put on a movie and stuff, or some tape or whatever, at night when we'd be cleaning up the store. And I was the idiot who always put on Much Ado About Nothing. And then I'd be standing there watching half of it and getting yelled at because I wasn't folding T-shirts and putting away stupid dolls and stuff like that from the Comfy Couch show. So, like, but that was, for me, was always the frustration as being a fan of Keanu, is that for so long, nobody could see past Ted, but that's because he's so good at it.
Right.
And because it endured, and because it became a part of pop culture, in a way that you look at a lot of the films from 89, there's not a lot of films from 89 that have endured the way that Bill and Ted has.
Well, and 2 years later, like, probably his next biggest movie, I mean, Parenthood was big, but he was kind of playing a similar part to Ted. And then his next biggest movie is Point Break, where he's, you know, it's all about surf culture, and he's playing a guy who's playing a surfer. So his entire career for such a long time got reduced to, like, critics making jokes about him saying, whoa. You know, and he sort of famously says it in The Matrix, and it just, everything becomes like, oh, he's the whoa guy, he's the surfer guy, he's the valley guy. And I agree, he's so good in this movie, but it's not just because he's playing this valley guy. Like, he's also incredibly sincere and incredibly sweet and has amazing comic timing. And again, I don't mean to only talk about Keanu, because obviously Alex Winter is really great too and meets him every step of the way, but you and I are such Keanu fans that it's hard not to focus on him more. You know, it's a super underrated Keanu movie. Did you ever see The Night Before?
That is like one of three that I've never seen. Is it great?
It's really fun. Yeah. I mean, it's like a weird, you know, it's the guy who did Night of the Comet, and it's a weird subversion of most teenage high school movies, because it's entirely about the prom, but you never see the prom. He blacks out and accidentally sells his date, Lori Loughlin, to a pimp. and spends the rest of the night trying to find her and get her back. And so it's weirdly about subverting what you see in most teen comedies. And again, he's very winning in it because he's very geeky and sincere and just likable. You know, you just like him on screen. And that was, he could do that stuff. And then anybody who said he couldn't do dramatic acting for years, I was doing the same thing. I was pointing to Permanent Record and River's Edge and saying like, no, look, this guy has given really good performances. My Own Private Idaho. But it didn't matter because, you know, he was kind of bad in Bram Stoker's Dracula. So for years and years, that was what we pointed to and said, nope, he can't do anything else.
And I mean, I get it about Bram Stoker's Dracula. He's obviously not the strongest person in that movie. But I don't think that was him. Like, it's just
partly him.
I mean, it's partly him, but I don't think it was, he just shouldn't have been in that role. And I think he did the best that he could. And it's just, I actually think Winona is really awful in that movie too, though.
Yeah, it's a weird movie.
Yeah, like I think honestly the only really good performance in that movie is Gary Oldman and the gal who plays Mina.
Okay.
Or I'm sorry, Lucy, right? Lucy's the slutty one? Yeah.
Well, I mean.
Sorry. I mean, you know.
Sadie Frost.
Yes. Like she's pretty good in that. But everybody else in that movie, I don't think there's a lot of good performances in that movie as a whole. So I don't think any of the responsibility as to why the performances in that movie, I don't think that's just squarely on Keanu.
No,
like I think I think that should have been cast completely differently, but you know, what are you going to do? It's gorgeous to look at and it's fun in other ways, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think also for me too, the reason that I always really liked Ted in that movie, like Bill's got a really funny arc to him. You know, he's got the hot stepmom but there's not a whole lot. By the way,
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but one of my absolute favorite running jokes is Ted constantly doing the remember when I asked her to prom.
Yeah.
Remember when she was a senior and we were freshmen? Like the remember when makes me laugh so hard. And then his smile afterwards when Ted tells him, shut up, Ted. And there's a beat and then he just smiles and just shakes it off. It's so amazing.
And I like that Missy's coming back for the new one too.
I saw that. Yeah.
Who the hell could she possibly be with this time? But I think for me, like, I think the reason I really like Ted, or I think I connected to Ted more is because his arc in the movie is something that a lot of teenagers and a lot of preteens can relate to. Your parents being really tough on you and they're not understanding you and sort of judging you and pushing you in ways that ends up being sort of detrimental to your own self-value. And I think that's why I felt like so much more of a kinship to Ted. Like Bill is fun. Alex is great in that role. You know, and I think the chemistry that they share is unmatched. But his arc in that movie is slight compared to Ted. And it's tough to even say it because it's a comedy, so you can't really like weigh it down. But if you look at the stuff that Ted goes through with his dad, you know, we joke about Oates Military Academy and all that kind of stuff, but like ultimately here's a kid whose dad doesn't know how to connect with him. So all he does is use discipline. And I think maybe for me, because my mom was really hard on me, like I got it. Like that to me really spoke to me. And so I saw a lot of myself in that character because I was essentially a good kid, but I was just being over disciplined a lot. And I think that's why maybe that resonated with me even more so beyond the fact that Keanu is so good in it. Because like to me, Alex Winter was just like this really cool dude. Like between Lost Boys and this, I was like, this guy rules. Like, but he wasn't a guy that I felt like I related to in the same way that I felt like I related to Ted, because he was cool. I wasn't cool. Like, I mean, I was cool, but I wasn't cool. You know, I wasn't driving around on a motorcycle with Kiefer Sutherland cool is essentially what I'm saying.
So few of us are.
Right? Oh, I rewatched Lost Boys, by the way, this weekend, too, after rewatching Bill and Ted's, because I've watched Bill and Ted probably a couple times a year. But I was like, I'm going to do an Alex Winter a little back and forth. And I was like, you know what? Good on him, because he did some good stuff in the 80s. So I was like, man, I'm just never going to be like that. Like, yeah, he was part of the cool group.
Yeah,
I was not.
No, me either. I'm still not. So You at least kind of are now.
It's iffy. But also, I wanted to say there's a movie that I don't think gets talked about enough. That's Alex did. Oh my God, what was that movie? Oh, jeez. It was like some like sort of. I remember I kind of got ripped into it. I thought it was a horror movie, but it's a drama that Alex was in, and he's actually really good in it. And I was like, wait, this is not the movie.
Is it Death Wish 3?
Yes. I mean, obviously that's way more romance than I was thinking. Oh my God, hold on. I'm trying to pull up his page really quick because I'm totally blanking on the name. Oh, Haunted Summer. I was like, I saw like Haunted Summer in a video store. I was like, oh, cool. The guy who's a vampire movie is doing a ghost movie now.
I've never seen Haunted Summer.
I haven't even thought about that movie. Like, it came out, I think, on VHS, like, late 88. Like, it was, like, right before Bill and Ted, like, I discovered it, like, right before Bill and Ted. And I was like, oh, Haunted Summer. Obviously. Like, he had his vampire summer. Now he's going to have a Haunted Summer. And it's, like, a drama. And I've never seen it pop up on cable.
It's about Percy Shelley and Mary Shelley and Lord Byron, like, the summer where they wrote their famous works.
And I was like,
and Alex Winter.
Yeah, because I remember, what's his face from...
It's a canon movie. Holy shit. Yeah, Eric Stoltz plays Percy Shelley.
And I was like, oh.
And Alice Krieg is Mary Shelley.
Yeah, which now, I mean, as a kid didn't mean anything to me, but of course now with Ghost Story, like, oh, of course. Right. But I was like, oh my God, like, yeah. And I was like, I was expecting like something completely different than I got. So anyway, I don't know if that movie exists anywhere anymore, but if you get a chance, he's actually really good at it. But that was like, I was like, ooh, Haunted Summer. We've got Some Kind of Wonderful. We've got, Alex Winter. Let's do this. And I was like, oh, this is not the movie I thought it was going to be.
No, I wouldn't. No, not at all.
So, but it's he's really good at it. So, and I think, Laura Dern's in it as well. So, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it is a canon movie about Mary Shelley. So go figure. They went the most completely not expected route for that movie.
I did not realize until this most recent viewing, because again, it had been years since I had seen it, that what's her name? Joan of Arc is Jane Wyland from the Go-Go's.
Are you serious?
I never, as a kid, that meant nothing to me. Like, I knew the Go-Go's, but I didn't know who Jane Wyland was. And I hadn't seen it in so long that after learning who she was, I don't think I've seen it since figuring it out. So
I remember her, she did a thing on MTV.
Oh, yeah, I had no idea at the time.
Ted. Oh, my gosh, yeah. I remember, like, it. It's different because, like, she doesn't have, like, a ton of lines or anything like that, and she does most of her stuff through, like, sort of her eyes and stuff like that. But, yeah, I remember there was, like a 3-minute little thing that I remember seeing on MTV because we had Jenna, her dad had a friend who would tape, like, blocks of programming off of MTV for us because we were addicted, but we couldn't get cable where we lived. And she did, like, a little vignette thing where she talked about getting to play Joan of Arc, and they did like this little montage of different music videos and stuff while she was talking and everything. But yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I was very surprised to realize that. And then as soon as I realized it, I was like, oh yeah, that totally is,
For me, what I never realized as a kid, like, is that, and basically Al Young, who, of course, goes on to do like Big Trouble in Little China and, all these amazing action movies, Die Hard and stuff like that. Like, it didn't dawn on me that Genghis Khan was in all these amazing action movies
I knew. That I was very aware of. I was like, oh, it's that guy who's in all those movies.
I was so wrapped up in Genghis Khan being so badass that it just, like, all of a sudden I remember, like, because here's where I admit something that I hate to even say, but, like, I didn't really see Die Hard, the first one, for like a really long time. I don't know why. I saw Die Hard with a Vengeance before I saw Die Hard.
Why are you admitting these things?
I don't know, but I didn't, because I saw part of it as a kid, but I never saw the entirety of it until later because I'm dumb. I just don't know how I missed Die Hard. it must have been some weird week where like, I don't know. Like for somebody who was at the movies like every weekend, I don't know how I missed it. So like to come back and be like, oh my God, this guy, like for me, like, and then I realized like one of my sort of favorite weird comedies, like I don't think it's a great comedy, but it's got great performances, is She's Having a Baby.
Yeah.
And he plays the photographer in that, where he's trying to do the baby ad piece where like Kevin Bacon's holding the baby and it's crying and he's running around panicked and all this kind of stuff. But I was like, oh my God, it's what's his face from Die Hard now. So like, yeah, but for me, it didn't quite connect that, you know, Genghis Khan was also a badass in all these other movies for a while. So I'm weird. So we all have our thing.
Yeah. I didn't know until researching for this episode, because I wouldn't know them by sight, that I knew when they go see the three most important people in the world, I obviously knew that one of them was Clarence Clemens from the Bruce Springsteen band, but I didn't know that the other two were also musicians.
I never knew it either. I always knew Clarence Clemens because, you know, he was pretty.
You knew Clarence Clemens, yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, he was a guy that you kind of just. He was always like around because of, you know, especially in the 80s, Bruce Springsteen was, of course, like really huge. So he was always showing up in the videos and stuff. But yeah, I could pretend that I knew who the Tubes were, but I didn't know who the Tubes were. But he did work with, Fee Waybill did work with Richard Marx. So there you go.
Oh, well then.
Just in case you wanted to know his greatness.
Those
endless summer nights.
I definitely loved Wherever You Go, Whatever You Do. I will be right here waiting for you. I taped it off the radio and listened to it a lot. Well, yeah. I think I was in 7th grade and crushing on Carrie Duffy, maybe.
That's so weird. I remember Carrie. I lived by Carrie.
Did you?
She was so sweet, but, you know... Yeah, anyway, I won't say I love her though, but you know how like you have like she like God bless her heart. She was so sweet, and I loved her and her sister Tracy. I loved hanging out with them, but like she was kind of ditzy.
Yeah. In
a nice way. But I mean, who am I to talk? My nickname is Twits, so what am I gonna say?
Was it really?
But like it was because I was clumsy. I'm still clumsy.
Oh.
So yeah, my babysitter, Leah Irick, basically nicknamed me Twits when I was really young, and it just sort of stuck. And then with like my old last name, I just became Twitnour. So, but then as you go into junior high and things start happening, suddenly Twits becomes something else, and you're like, maybe I don't need this nickname anymore, and I'm good, and I'm going to move on now.
You escaped it successfully.
I did, but it was the name I put on the back of my softball jerseys for 2 years. And I was like, it's like, yeah, I'm going to own it because I am very clumsy. So anyway, now people don't need to hear this conversation. But yes, I do remember Carrie Duffy.
Richard Marx, that was our song. She doesn't know it, but in my head, I knew
it. And you're like, I knew it. I'm trying to think, do you remember, Timmy T did a song, so we're talking about junior high crushes, because I was super boy crazy in junior high, but like my big super crush was Matt Carlson.
Sure. All 4 feet of him.
Shut up.
So, well, listen, was it One More Try?
Yes. Oh my God. And I remember I tried to get him to dance with me, because junior high dances are the freaking worst, man. They are just awful. And like, it's basically like girls on one side crying, boys on the other side not knowing what to do with themselves. And it's a mess. Like, I don't know why you do dances in junior high. Nobody's ready for that. But I remember like trying to get him to dance to that song, and it was like, no. And then I remember because I was moving the year before 8th grade, and Jenny Wishon threw me a going away party. And we actually danced. God, people don't need to know this, but it's funny because it's all rushing back to my head right now. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm in junior high again. But I remember there was like a Mariah Carey song that came out like at that time, and we danced to that. And then my mom, again, I told you she's really strict. She picked me up from my going away party 2 hours early and made me leave because we had to go do laundry.
Oh, wow.
My friends are having a party for me because I'm leaving. And she takes me from my going away party. So, but that summer she did let me go to the movies with Matt a few times. So that was nice. But yeah, I guess maybe I don't know. I like taller dudes now, but yeah, I think I sort of was okay with shorter dudes for a while.
Obviously.
Because my first serious boyfriend in high school was like pretty short too. So, but he was a nice kid. Remember like when those stupid ceramic masks were like a thing?
No.
Like they're sort of like the kabuki masks in a way. Like you see one of them on the wall in Halloween 4.
Okay, sort of.
Yeah. Anyway, he bought me one of those, and I actually still have it. So holding an old torch out for 35 years or whatever.
Do you choke up when you hear one more try? Do you?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I get a little verklempt. I do. I have to take a moment. Go in the bathroom, lock the doors, turn on the shower, just cry.
Do you wish you and Matt Carlson could have had one more try?
No, actually, what's really funny is years later in like the early 2000s, I used to work downtown, and I was walking to work, or I was walking to lunch one day because I worked at the three in one of the Wacker buildings, and there's like you go on down these escalators, and there's like these underground like walkways to get to all these different buildings. And I was on the escalator going up, and all of a sudden I look over to the escalator going down, and he was on the escalator. And I was like, and I literally yelled out, I was like, holy shit, Matt. And he looked and he's like, Heather? But he, and I don't mean to say this to anybody who's follicularly challenged, but he had lost his hair mostly.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay. I did okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, because, you know, Brian's like an untethered beast with his hair. So, but yeah, no, but it was really cool because we actually talked for a few minutes, and it was just kind of like I was like, holy crap, that was like such a way back thing. But now that we've digressed into nothing that means anything to Bill and Ted, but it was like all of a sudden it was like all these junior high memories I was like, holy crap, what is happening? We're getting caught up in the wave of nostalgia. So thank God everyone's tuning in to hear all this crap. So.
Well, this movie, I mean, I do associate with this point in my life more than a lot of other movies that came out around this time. Like, I can still remember staying up. We had the movie channel when I was a kid, and the movie channel used to do a thing where they would premiere a movie every weekend. And on Friday night, it would premiere at 10 o'clock. And then on Saturday, it would be on at, 7. And then Sunday, I don't remember when it would be on. And so the weekend that Bill and Ted was the premiere movie, I convinced my parents to let me stay up till 10 so I could press record on the VHS and tape it off of TMC. And so I have like those opening notes, after the Orion logo when the music starts for the opening credits, like indelibly etched into my brain because I just watched the video of it so many times, but also I remember like the moment I pressed record at 10 o'clock at night on the movie channel. I don't remember any other movies staying up to record except for maybe stuff that was on USA Up All Night. But this one I remember because it meant a whole lot to me.
I'm going to tell you this because I know Brian's probably not listening at this point because he's just, he does what he does, but he's not in this part of the episode. So he made a remix of the song from Bill and Ted.
Nice.
And it's really awesome. And it was like he played in the car one day and I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. But I agree when those notes hit, you're like, oh, I'm there. I'm like, it literally takes like the first like 4 notes and you're like, it is immediately like, I'm right there. It's Bill and Ted time.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of not an easy thing. Like there's a lot of movies that I like from 1989. Do you know what I mean? Like
sure.
For better or for worse, I like Halloween 5. I like Shocker a lot. Pet Sematary. I know you love Zelda.
Easy.
The Burbs is of course a classic, but there's just something about Bill and Ted that it just like, it's the best. Like it's that movie that out of all of the movies that came out that year, it's the one that I revisit the most. So sorry, Silent Night, Deadly Night 3. But no, it was such a perfect capper on that decade. And I think also just for me, like it also got me interested in things I didn't think I thought I cared about. Like I suddenly cared about history class, and not that I didn't care before, but like when you're a kid, sometimes you learn stuff so you can pass your test. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you could just get on to the next thing. Whereas like after Bill and Ted, I was like, oh, I want to know more about this stuff now. Like, you know, like you get sort of these little abridged versions of things about these different figures in history. And I'm like, I kind of want to know more about, you know, Joan of Arc. And I actually went and like took like 3 different books on Joan of Arc out of the library, like a total nerd.
She played guitar in the Go-Go's.
Exactly, and that's ultimately the what I realized at the end of it. So I was like, oh, she ended up being a guitarist in a pretty successful female group. Good for her.
And then was burned at the stake.
Right, like because here's the thing, I always knew like Napoleon Bonaparte was like you know, a bad dude or whatever, but I didn't know anything like beyond like sort of he won this battle and he lost this battle. Like I didn't know anything about him. And this is like, it sounds stupid and weird, but this movie like made me go out and want to learn things, which is kind of dumb, but kind of true. You know, like I wanted to know more, you know, even about Socrates, but I actually learned a lot about Socrates in high school. So, but yeah, I'm just a nerd, and I was enthralled by this on every possible level. I just, you know, I just wanted to get as much of everything that they were giving you. And I was doing it any way that I could.
I appreciate that I don't think the movie has education first and foremost on its mind, but it does have a way of, you know, literally bringing history to life in a way that could spark an interest, I think, or at least make you appreciate certain things. I mean, I love the montage of the presentation that they give at the end, although I have to wonder how long their presentation is.
Right. Or like the logistics of trying to put that together.
Right.
Or the fact that like, is it okay for Billy the Kid to shoot a gun in a school? Because I feel even in '89, that's pretty extreme. Like, I feel like
he wanted everyone's attention. It's okay.
I mean, I just feel like kids go home that day and they're like, Mom, Billy the Kid was shooting a gun in school. And the parents are going to be like, what? What's going on at San Dimas High School? Except for the fact that it's football rules. I've
heard that. We went out, you know, we were out in California a couple of years ago, and we would have to drive through.
When you didn't tell me, and you were like, oh, hey, Horror BFF, I'm here, but I'm not here by. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I remember. I believe that was the time.
Great.
We kept having to drive by San Dimas High School, maybe, and like I couldn't drive by it without thinking about how their football rules.
Oh yeah, there's if you drive on the 210, you always drive through San Dimas.
Yeah.
And because there's a sign that just says San Dimas, and it is a law in the state of California that if you drive by that sign, you have to yell out San Dimas High School football rules. Like you have to do it, and you have to do it like that. You can't just say, "Oh, San Dimas High School football rules." No, you have to yell it like that guy.
Yeah.
Or you do get pulled over, and you will get a ticket. So fair warning to anybody who comes and visits our state.
So let me ask you this before we wrap up, because we're almost at the hour mark. I'll keep it to just directors. You can go back in time and round up any directors you want. Who goes in your phone booth?
Oh, even though I know he's a creep, I definitely would go Hitchcock.
Okay.
Probably James Whale.
Okay.
Would be another one.
Yeah.
Trying to think of directors who aren't here. Am I doing this now or am I doing this in 1989? I'm doing this now, right?
Doing this now.
Okay, well, let's go back and just get Wes Craven anyway, because,
Sure.
you know, everything's better with Wes. Oh, man. Is Philip Kaufman still around?
I believe he is.
He still alive?
Yeah.
Okay, then I don't think I have to get him in my phone book.
You can still get him if you want.
Here. I can just get a young version of him.
Sure.
Kubrick would be fun, but I feel like I'd be frustrated by him, like after talking to him for like 20 minutes. I want 70s Friedkin in my phone booth, though.
Nice.
I want to make that happen.
I just want to listen to him talk all day.
Right? Like, I like angry Friedkin now, but I just want to see completely unhinged 70s Friedkin.
Yeah.
And I just want him to run wild.
Slapping priests and shit.
Right? Yeah. Boy, that's a good question. I don't know. Who'd be in yours?
Toby Hooper, obviously.
Oh, Toby, yes.
George Romero. Probably Sam Peckinpah, just although he'd probably have a gun with him, which would freak me out.
That's okay. He can just shoot it off to get everybody's attention. It'll be fine.
It's fine. That's how that works. Shoot. I don't even know. I didn't think of this myself.
I do want to, but before we do wrap up, because we were talking about directors, I do feel like we should tip our hat a little bit to Stephen Herek on this. Because I don't feel like he ever really gets a lot of credit, because obviously he's the guy who directed the original Critters, which is great. And then he does this. And then, of course, he does one of my quintessential favorites during the summer, Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter is Dead. And then he did other movies, which I'm like, Mighty Ducks was a little too skewed young for me when it came out because I was too cool for school at that point. But he also does Mr. Holland's Opus, which I think is a pretty damn good movie. But I also think it's funny that he also did the 101 Dalmatians movie. And that
he has a weird filmography.
I know, and then he eventually went on to do the Chaperone movie with Triple H.
Because didn't he do like Rockstar and Life or something like it? I mean, he's got a weird filmography. I
know, but if you look at like his first 4 movies, I mean, that's a pretty bona fide run there, because I like Critters, I like Bill and Ted's, I like Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. I can appreciate Mighty Ducks for being what it is for kids. It's fun,
right,
you know.
Sure.
And you know,
I don't mind. I don't mind his.
I
don't mind his Three Musketeers actually.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. I was like, yeah, I didn't really mind that either. But I mean, then you look at something like Mr. Holland's Opus, and I was like, that should have been a movie that like sort of changed the trajectory of his career, and it didn't. And I was like, oh, okay. But I think he's a pretty solid director. I was kind of like, oh, look at that. I didn't even realize going into this that he was the guy who did Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. Yeah. Like for that alone, I'm like, cool, that's great. And apparently he is running the new MacGyver series, so good for him.
I don't even think I knew there was a new MacGyver series. So,
if I was a betting person, I'm pretty sure it's on CBS.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's why I'm pretty sure it's on CBS, which is why you wouldn't know.
I'm not in the age range for CBS.
Yeah, not yet. It's a few more years. We'll all be there. I'll be there right behind you. One year later, you know, I'll join you and we'll watch whatever Big Bang Theory reboot they're going to do at some point, because you know that's coming.
Right.
So, but yeah, I feel like he's somebody who should be, you know, given a little more attention, because I think, you know, he really, and I think this is his first film too, which is
I believe you're right.
So good for him. Good for you, Stephen Herek, if you're listening.
No, because Critters was before this.
Oh, shoot, you're right. Sorry.
But Critters would have been first, yeah.
All right. Well, he started in the genre, so there you go.
That's right. So it's okay that we're talking about this, basically.
Yes. It all comes full circle.
Anything else about Bill and Ted you want to say before we wrap up?
No. I mean, it's awesome, and it's the best. And if you haven't watched it in years, do yourself a favor, put a smile on your face and go watch Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, because I guarantee it'll be there by the end. And if you come at me and say, oh, that movie is stupid, please understand that I will dismiss you outright. Just putting that out there.
I don't even want to think that there's a world in which people are anti-Bill and Ted.
You know that there's somebody out there who wants to be the contrarian. You know it. Somebody out there is itching to just plant their
there's going to be people who automatically are like, the sequel's better, and that's fine if you like the sequel better. Yeah. But
it's a totally different beast to me. Like,
you don't have to like it at the expense of this movie.
Yeah. Did you like Bogus Journey as much when it came out as I remember not really liking Bogus Journey when it came out that much. Like I liked, obviously, Bill and Ted. I thought the effects were really cool. I thought it did something completely different, but there was a lot to it that I was not jazzed about as a kid. And I felt like in some ways it was sort of cheaper. It just had like a cheaper feel to it. But I mean, I loved Death. I was like torn because I didn't like the story, but I like the inclusion of deaths, but it's one that like I've really come to love as an adult because of how weird it is.
Yeah, it is a super weird movie.
Yeah. Were you like super into it when it came out, or did
not
it
as
take
much
a
as this?
up?
I liked it. I didn't love it. I was definitely more into Excellent Adventure, but yeah, as an adult now, I'm fully on board for Bogus Journey. It's really, really great.
And next year we will have Face the Music finally.
Yeah, we will.
And I can't even believe it. I'm so excited. Like I could just cry right now thinking about it. Although I am admittedly a little bummed that they're not bringing the princesses back, and I don't know how that's going to work.
Recasting the princesses, I don't care for that.
With like, and don't get me wrong, I like the actresses they're bringing in,
yeah, but they're like 20 years younger.
Exactly, and I was like, did we de-age the princesses? Like, what? Yeah. How does this work? Because I love Diane Franklin, and I think she's adorable in these movies, and I really liked like. She was like the girl that like I would see in movies in the 80s, and I'd be like, oh, I could kind of be like her in a way. You know what I mean? Like she is fun. Cause I remember like Better Off Dead and, Terror Vision. I was like, oh, and I'm really super freaking bummed.
Yeah, me too.
That she's not going to be in this one. So, but at least we have her in the first two, and, and that's good.
Is she in Bogus Journey? I thought they recast him in Bogus Journey.
Oh my God, maybe they did.
I think they do.
I think they did.
Yeah. But again, I just figured that they, going back to basics, like bring the original, the original princesses back.
Oh, they do. It's somebody named Sarah Trigger who has no real resume, so thank God they didn't bring back Diane.
Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah. Oh, well. Anyway, thank you all for listening to this episode of Horror BFFs. Next month, as promised, we will go through the Underworld movies. But make sure that
there'll be no junior high flashbacks during that episode, I'm guessing.
There's going to be multiple junior high flashbacks just so we can not talk about Underworld. But make sure that you're going to Daily Dead and catching up with all the class of 1989 coverage, because it's really, really great. And there's some really cool pieces for you guys to be reading. So I hope you're doing that. And check out Corpse Club and find out how you can become a member. As always, thank you guys for listening. Thank you to Brian, our engineer, for editing things and making us sound cool and making cool remixes of the Bill and Ted music. Thank you to my horror BFF, Heather.
Yes, party on, dude.
Until
Did
next
I say it as
time.
cool as Abe does?
Until next time, everybody, stay excellent.